Chella and Carmen Rotordi, please come on out.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. Orlando and I are looking forward to taking all of you on a musical journey to Peru. All the pieces you're going to hear were composed by classically trained Peruvian composers and one Peruvian American composer. And they all reflect the influence of Andean indigenous melodies, rhythms, and traditions in a variety of ways. The pieces you'll hear at the very beginning of the program reflect these influences in a very direct way. But as the program progresses, the composers combine indigenous elements with all kinds of really interesting and fun contemporary compositional techniques. So Orlando will tell you about our first piece, Vida Coche.
So the first piece, first of all, thank you for being here tonight. And our first piece talks about Viracocha, which is a Peruvian deity. It's pretty much the creator of the genesis of Peru. And it has two very important features. The first one is, I only play 5 notes, which is typical because it's a pentatonic scale. So I only have to worry about 5 notes throughout the whole entire piece, which is very typical of the style of music. And then the other interesting part, is it okay to ask you to play the whino rhythm? As you're going to hear this. Yeah?
You can all dance.
It's a typical dance, yeah? And it's, and the text, obviously, this is a song, and the text talks about, the big spaces, the large mountains, overseeing the ocean and so forth. So I hope you enjoy it.
Next, I'm going to play 3 very short piano pieces, also reflecting a very direct indigenous folk influence. The first is by Pablo Chavez Aguilar. He was a Roman Catholic priest, wrote a lot of sacred music, but he also was very inspired by indigenous music, and he wrote a set of 6 Incan preludes, and I'm going to play one of them. It's very lyrical, and it has a pentatonic melody. As we mentioned, much indigenous music uses that 5-note scale rather than the Western major and minor. And you hear this melody repeated over and over again. The next 2 little pieces are by Rodolfo Holzmann. He was born in Germany, came to Peru as a young man, and he traveled throughout the country writing down indigenous melodies and rhythms. The first piece, Preludio Pastoral, is very evocative, again, makes use of the pentatonic mode. And the last piece I'll play is called Hirish Yanka, which is Quechua for white hummingbird. Quechua was an indigenous language, and it's still spoken in the Andes today. And this vigorous piece reflects the wonderful dance rhythms in the Ancash region of Peru, which is the north of the country. So I hope you like these 3 short piano pieces.
Okay, our next piece is going to actually merge a little bit of the European world with the Peruvian music that you've been hearing so far, I should say, Peruvian musical style that you've been hearing so far. So I always get amazed in the first of these three short pieces because there's an inherent minor key with the minor feeling, but then at the very end, the composer changes one note and makes it major at the end. And Andres Sanz does this with this piece a lot. So you want to hear a lot of very pentatonic scales. Sometimes you change one note, it becomes a whole entire new scale, and it could be very chromatic. Suddenly it takes you into his European schooling of composition, and then it brings you back immediately into, again, a very earthy, very open Peruvian style of playing. And it has three movements. The first one is really a collection of very different melodies, put together in a very creative way in which you want to hear almost like 17 pieces pasted together. The second one is a very sad, very beautiful, gorgeous piece, and I believe it's a Yaraví, right? Yaraví?
It's based on a Yaraví, yes.
It's Yaraví, which is a plain, it's a sad song from the plains, right? And then the end is something very exciting, a very happy dance. Something, just watch out for those, harmonic changes where you suddenly are in a completely different color. It's fabulous.
The next piece is a piano piece by Enrique Iturriaga. He lived a very long life. I think your program has him been born in 1918, which is correct, but he did die in 2019. So he lived to be 101 years old. As a young man, he studied with two previous composers you have heard tonight, with Andrés Sas and with Rodolfo Holzmann. He wrote Pregón y Danza for piano in 1952. The word pregón can loosely be translated as the street seller's cry or song. So from colonial times until pretty recently, these street vendors would wander the streets of Lima in the early morning, and they would sing a particular tune that would represent the product they were selling. So if you heard one little tune, you'd know that was someone coming and selling eggs. Another little tune, it was someone selling chickens. So this is the way that they did their business, by singing these little tunes. So Iturriaga really captures the atmosphere of Lima in the first movement called Pregón, the darkness and the mist and all of these songs that are happening at once. You can also hear the sound of the church bells at the very beginning of this piece. This movement goes directly into danza, which of course means dance, and this is a very aggressive, dramatic dance, and it has quite a bit of dissonance. We haven't really heard this type of harsh harmony yet in the program, but this is 1950s, so you have polyrhythms and these very biting polyharmonies. But it's very rhythmic, very fun to play, and I hope you enjoy it.
work for flute solo in which everything is very stylized in terms of the traditions of the Peruvian wind instruments. I don't know if you have seen pan flutes before. The Peruvian pan flutes actually come in immense amount of sizes. Some of them are very little, and some of them can be as tall as me. Not that I'm very tall, but they can be very big, right? So I didn't have one today to show, but when you play a regular pan pipe, it sounds very nice and melodic, but when you play a very long tube that is about 5 feet long, right? You really don't get a lot of pitch, but what you get, it's a lot of a lot of percussive air effect, right? If you have ever heard the soundtracks of, for example, Morricone's The Mission, right? You hear a lot of that in the music. You hear a lot of those very low, powerful, like air drums, I like to call it. So a lot of it comes in this piece by Celso Garrido Leca. And Garrido Leca, if you like to play 6 degrees of separation, it's really close to us. I will tell you why. I have a student in Berkeley where I teach, and his teacher studied with Celso Garrido Leca. Okay? So that's how many? 4 degrees maybe? All right? Yeah. All right? Yeah. So now you're really close to that. And it's actually not unusual. Garrido Leca was born in Peru. He did spend some time studying with very big composers like Aaron Copland. I mean, he actually studied in Tanglewood for a while during the 60s. And then during the 70s, he returned to South America and eventually becoming the head of the composition department of the Universidad de Chile. Now, for those of you, that's a very contentious issue, right? A Peruvian teaching in Chile, right? So anyway, that's another topic for another day. But as you can see, this is a composer that takes a little bit of that Peruvian tradition and mixes it up with like some very intense contemporary music that he studied with in the United States and brings it back to South America. So you're going to hear a couple of things here. You're going to hear a lot of microtones, which is notes out of tune on purpose, right? So quarter tones, the notes in between the keys of the piano. You're also going to hear 2 notes at the same time sometimes. You're also going to hear percussive effects with the keys of the flute. So, all to give you that effect of, a big chorus of pan pipes, some of them very melodic and some of them very, very large and very rhythmic.
tell, you're all looking forward to hearing extended techniques on the piano as well, right? So your wish has come true. So the next piece is by Jorge Villavicencio Grossman. He was born in Peru, he currently lives in the US. He's on the composition faculty at Ithaca College in New York. And he wrote this piece for us in 2019. So the title Antara means panpipes in Quechua, and of course the panpipes were a very important instrument in indigenous music tradition. So occasionally you have these sounds that kind of evoke the panpipes and maybe the Andes and the mystery. But what's really striking about this piece is there are extended techniques for both of us. So I get to play inside the piano, I get to pluck notes and strum notes. I also put my finger on the string at a certain place and then play the key, and it has a very distinctive sound, combined with some extended techniques that Orlando will do, which he will tell you about while I set up the piano.
The same as before. Oh, just kidding. So you want to hear a lot more of the percussion effects, with the keys in the instrument, and which sound great in this space, which is so resonant. The other things that you can hear, if you pay very, very close attention, is I actually have to roll in the flute totally inside my mouth and play a note very, very, very softly. And what it does, it makes it sound almost an octave lower. So one of the things that you hear, I don't know if you could hear that. It's very, very, very soft. No, it's okay. I'll play it louder when it comes there. So a lot of these techniques are really new, really cutting edge. I haven't played any other piece in which I need to actually play that technique, which I have to roll my the hedging totally inside the mouth and then try to make a sound.
super extended techniques for this evening. Of course, we have numerous encores we can play for you, just like that. So the last piece we're going to play is by Gabriela Lina Frank. She was born in the United States of Peruvian descent. A prolific composer, many of her pieces were inspired by Andean indigenous music. So we're going to play Sueños de Chambi, which means dreams of Chambi. The complete piece is 7 movements, and each movement describes a photograph by Martin Chambi. Martin Chambi was the first indigenous photographer to become internationally recognized. And he had a studio in Cusco from the 1920s to the 1950s. And of course, many foreign photographers have come over the years to photograph the landscape, indigenous people, but always as very exotic people in exotic landscapes. But Chambi was one of the people, and so he portrayed their everyday lives in a very direct and sympathetic way. So we're going to play 4 movements, and each movement is, of course, describing a photograph, and you will see images of the photograph as we play. First one is entitled Pasia Marcha, and it describes the bastoneras, who are indigenous women who do this very intricate dance somehow with very, very tall poles. They never drop the poles, and they manage to do this very elegant, very lovely dance. The next movement is called Adoración para Angelitos, which means adoration for little children or little angels. And this depicts or describes a very beautiful photograph of a dead child surrounded by candles. And this particular movement is for piano solo, and the plaintive melody you'll hear is an actual indigenous lullaby that was written down and cataloged by Andres Sass. This goes into the next movement called Yaraví de Chambi. So Orlando already mentioned Yaraví is an indigenous lament. Chambi, of course, refers to the photographer, so you'll see the image of Chambi. It's a self-portrait in profile. And this goes right into Marinera, which is a coastal dance in Peru. This is a very vigorous, very lively dance, very jazzy. At times it almost sounds like Orlando and I aren't playing together, but that's okay because we end up together. So I hope you enjoy this piece and the images of the photographs by Martin Chambi. Reassemble the piano now.